Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. We are back on regular scheduled programming with our TMI Tuesdays. You are with me this evening. I will introduce my guest momentarily, and we'll be back with our CEO and co founder, Dr. Yen, in the next couple weeks. So, all of that to say, welcome back. Excited to be here. Last month, we had a focus on Pride Month as well as Roe v. Wade. I'm excited to talk about something different than Roe v. Wade. The Pride stuff can stay, but everything else, happy to move on from it. So it is a continuous conversation. But anyway, happy to be discussing something else tonight. So before I keep rambling, I am going to give a couple reminders. Number one, feel free to leave comments or questions in the chat. Obviously, please keep it respectful and appropriate, and we will try to answer it during the live. If we don't get to it during the live, we'll get to it later. So feel free to do that. And that is pretty much it. Tonight's topic is going to be loving the skin you're in. We'll be talking about body positivity, mental health, as well as keeping yourself safe and healthy during the summer months. Summer's flying by, but we still have time. So that's that. Okay. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest. This is my sister Shayna. I'm so happy she's joining me this evening. And yeah, do you want to give a little intro on yourself?
Sure. I'm Shayna. I am going to be a senior at GW this year, George Washington University. I study human services and social justice, and I want to be a teacher. And right now I'm working with Everytown for Gun Sense in America as an intern, and I run a student advocacy program to help students learn about how they can make change around gun violence.
Cool. That was perfect. Looks like we're separate right now because of this
in
wall, but we're in the same room.
I was gonna mention that.
We are sisters. We're in the same shirt right now, so we look even more alike. We both live in DC. I also went to GW undergrad. I studied exercise science, psychology, and dance, and I'm going back in the fall for occupational therapy. So if anyone has any questions on that or on gun violence prevention, she's your expert on that. So let us know. Again, feel free to leave that in the chat. Otherwise, let's get started. So introducing we didn't give our sexual health facts.
Oh yeah.
You want to go for it? Oh. Okay, I'll go first. So sexual health fact that I'll be sharing, or we just said reproductive health. I'm slightly more comfortable talking about these topics. So my sexual health fact is that having an orgasm during your period helps reduce cramps and other symptoms of PMS. I had my period last week, so that was a fact that I definitely thought of because of that. All right.
Yay.
Go for it.
Mine is a little bit more related to the brain, and I looked it up a couple minutes before we started this, but found it interesting. Women are, I think, biologically maybe better listeners, possibly, because in a study where they tested brain activity on men versus women, women showed activity in both sides of the brain, so both the left, which is related to speech and language, and then the right, which is more creativity and expression. So there's a thought that, women are a little better able to read between the lines in a conversation, maybe a little bit better listener. So that could be why. Who knows?
Sounds right to me. Anyway, okay, officially moving on. I talk way too much on these, but that's why it's casual. We're chilling. That's why it's real talk. So, as I said before, we're going to be talking about body positivity, loving the skin you're in, and all of that good stuff as specifically it relates to the summer. So, first thing I wanted to talk about, I'm going to introduce this topic and then we'll kind of go back and forth. So, right off the bat, it is summertime. Depending on where you are in the world, this might be different, but we are both in Washington, D.C. For the most part, in the United States, it is pretty hot and humid right now. Again, can't speak to everyone, but we can definitely say that here. Yeah. So with the change in weather comes changes in how you're feeling physically, mentally. We'll get into that later. But in terms of physical health, a couple tips I wanted to share. And again, feel free to ask questions, piggyback off of this. That goes for you too. Mm-hmm. But the first thing I want to talk about is wearing cotton underwear. This is I feel like this is such a weird thing to kick it off with, but it's kind of underestimated. Literally, if you look up summer hygiene for women, the first thing that comes up is wearing cotton underwear. It is just typically more absorbent. I don't necessarily know if it's more sweat wicking, but it's just kind of better and more comfortable for that area. So that's tip number one. Otherwise, spandexy material, I feel like that's a good second. That would be a bathing suit or like spandex shorts. But again, keeping that area kind of like, generally speaking, aired out, especially in the evening. If you want to sleep without underwear, again, with that cotton underwear, definitely recommended for the summer. Kind of on the same lines is changing out of sweaty clothes. So say you do a workout, or even if you're just like walking around outside and it's super hot out, changing out of your clothes as soon as possible. I know this always isn't super feasible, but trying to do it as best as you can. Again, just like letting your skin breathe. I think sometimes we don't do that enough. And then same thing with that is that our skin can pick up a lot of oil. It can also kind of get dried out with the heat, depending on like your skin type. So wearing sunscreen. I use a moisturizer that I love from the brand CeraVe, which I would recommend to pretty much any skin type. That has SPF. You can also just use sunscreen. There's a lot of like lightweight brands. I know Native has one now that's supposed to be like super lightweight on your skin. So
I like the Sun Bum.
Sun Bum is really good.
Smells good.
Yeah, and not just on your face. Obviously, on your whole body. We were just talking about how we're both sunburned, so we need to take our own advice.
Yes.
But that. Then in the evening, or I mean, I like to do it in the evening just because it makes me feel fresh before I go to sleep, washing your face with just like a gentle cleanser. I just watched a video about how the cleansers that have like the little beads in them are not so great for your skin. So don't even worry about that. Get something that's like really mild, really gentle, and typically unscented, which actually brings me into my next topic. Also, it's thundering out. If you hear that, apologies. Stay safe if you are in the DMV area. There's like a flood this evening. But unscented products. So this goes for honestly pretty much everything. I think with body wash, that's like the one exception I usually make. But again, definitely try to avoid anything that's super scented, especially on the areas of your skin that are more sensitive. So your face, your vagina, and that kind of goes into the best ways to clean that area. So the vagina itself is self-cleansing. So that is literally like the hole. The vulva, on the other hand, we just posted a little Instagram about this. So that's kind of like everything else. So like the labia and everything on the inside. That area is not self-cleansing, but really the only thing you need to feel clean and just make sure that everything is good down there is warm water, a little bit of unscented soap. You can even, if you don't have that, if you need to skip it every now and then, that's fine. No need to put anything else. I know people, there's a product called Summer's Eve that is marketed. I'm sure this is not the only one that's marketed to like make you smell better, smell a certain way. You don't need that. If anything, it's probably going to throw off your pH. So warm water, unscented soap, and all of that. And then really last thing that I have for this, actually two things. Number one is staying hydrated. Again, it's just going to help everything, your skin, your digestive system, everything. I know in the summer, diet, things can change a little bit. Like I know sometimes I'm going out to eat more and like my schedule gets a little bit different with that. Obviously live your best life, be safe with the pandemic, but all of that stuff, having water in your system is really important, especially if you're going out, if you're drinking, if you're over 21, obviously. Hydrating, it's so important. Again, I definitely don't do enough, but we both have our water bottles here. So yeah. And then last thing, this isn't just for the summertime, but I feel like just I like to constantly remind people of this is that if you are sexually active, specifically like penis and vagina sex, or I guess really any type of like penetrative sex, peeing afterwards, or at least kind of like wiping down, that's just going to help get rid of any bacteria. It isn't going to prevent pregnancy or protect you from the spread of STIs, but it's just better for your system. So if you forget every now and then, that's okay. No one's perfect, but at the same time, it is, if you can remember, something that is beneficial for you. So that was a lot. But those are kind of my top tips for the summer. And we're going to get into a little bit more specifics on how to feel good. So that's kind of how you stay healthy on the outside. We're going to go more into how you feel healthy on the inside. But before we get into that, did you have any questions? Did you want to add to that? I know that was a lot.
No, I think that was pretty good. I think it's often like simpler than you think. I feel like a lot of the time, like we're marketed a lot of different products and you don't really need it. It's like very simple, just water and soap, some little sunscreen, and you're good to go.
Right. And doing things that like if something doesn't make your body feel comfortable, like most of the time you don't need it. So again, that kind of goes with like the scented products and everything. Like our bodies, yes, they can get a certain like body odor, things like that, but it doesn't really take much to get rid of that. And again, I can't speak to everyone, but for the most part, so just using an unscented soap and just like literally just getting any dirt or anything off of your body is typically enough for all of that. And then one more thing, actually, I forgot to mention, especially in the summer, if you are getting your period, and you're wearing pads or tampons. This kind of the main thing that this doesn't really apply to is the menstrual cup. You can keep that in for quite a bit, but mostly pads and tampons, changing them kind of more frequently, especially if you're sweating. Again, just to keep that area healthy, keep the pH balanced, and all of that. So that's all I have for that. Staying healthy on the outside. Again, if you have any questions, anything you'd like to add, fun facts, feel free to write them in the comments. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about mental health. So mental health, obviously, it's a year-round thing, but I think in the summer it can get a little bit challenging. I know just with social media and seeing other people with their plans and swimsuit season and all of that, it can be a little bit more taxing on people's mental health. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that, keeping your brain healthy. So I'm going to kick you off for this one. Do you have any tips on staying healthy mentally over the summer?
So one thing that just kind of first came to mind of when you were saying like the summer mental health can be harder, it's kind of like you don't always expect that because you think, oh, I'm gonna be so happy in the summer, no more school, no, like I
It's a
have a
lot of
little bit
pressure.
more time at work. So you get like, yeah, you get like an extra set of pressure. Oh my gosh, I need to be doing things all the time. I need to be having fun. And you like put those expectations on yourself that may or may not be as realistic as like you really are. I know sometimes like I'll be like, I'm gonna do all these things, and then I'm like, wait, like I'm still the same me. I'm still the same Shayna. There's only
You
so
haven't
many.
changed because the season has.
Right, exactly. But I do think the summer is still a really good opportunity to like add in like one thing that maybe you haven't been able to do. So like one self-care thing. I love reading or like listening to books. I'm like the slowest reader in the world, so I like to listen to my books, and I listen to like not trash, but I listen to like YA fiction books.
Nothing
and
wrong with that.
they make me happy, and I'll listen to them when I'm cooking or doing more mundane tasks, and it's something that just makes me really happy in my day. Even sometimes if I'm working remotely and need a little break, just listen to my book for a few minutes. It's great. So that's been, and I can add that in. That's like one thing that I can do that I don't always have as much time to do in the school year. So that's a nice thing. So kind of thinking of that one thing that makes you happy and trying to incorporate it. And then what was another thing? Also, like I think everyone's a little different, but I definitely like to have a little bit of a routine, even on the weekends. And I think the summer is a time when your routine gets really thrown off. The school year is like really helpful in that. I feel like where it keeps you on schedule. You have the same schedule every week. The summer's definitely a little bit more variable. So giving yourself that schedule, even if it's just like having certain things that you know you're going to do in the day. It doesn't have to be at a specific time. I'm not the best at like timing out my day, but knowing, oh, today I'm going to go for a walk. I have to get this done for work. I have to do this. I'm going to read. And like, those are my 4 things in my day. So those are just like a couple of things, routine and adding in something that makes you happy that you didn't have time for.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think that is like very specific to students.
Yeah,
so
yes.
That was something that when I transitioned from still an undergrad to, I don't want to say the real world, but like non-college summers where you're still kind of in the same job. And again, I know that doesn't apply to everyone, but a lot of the times if you're still working your 9 to 5 or whatever your hours are in the summer, it can feel kind of underwhelming. So if you are able to schedule in that time for yourself, I think that's really great. And it doesn't have to be anything big. I mean, it totally can. Scheduling things to look forward to, like a show, or in DC we have Jazz in the Park. There's just like a lot of things.
This Friday.
Oh, love that. Oh my God. Look out for her.
I know.
But even just like for me, trying out new coffee shops or trying out like a new workout class, things like that. And it looks different for every person. So your self-care or how you enjoy to spend the summer doesn't have to be the same as everyone else's. Like I have a lot of friends who love to travel or who love to do, go to concerts and things like that. And all of that stuff is great. But if that's not your thing, that's okay too. And it's okay to say no to plans. But at the same time, it's also okay to push yourself and say yes to plans. This is something I need to take my own advice.
Me too.
But I have like most of the time saying yes to things, maybe it causes some anxiety in the moment. But in the long run, usually you don't regret it. So, and worst comes to worst, you just leave. So things like that, I think sometimes alone time is really important. But at the same time, finding that balance, and also just goes into surrounding yourself with positive people who make you feel good, who make you feel happy. And I know sometimes that you get that from your workplace, but if you don't, it's great to find that elsewhere. And it's hard to make friends. We can do a whole separate live on that, but I think that's really great, and I loved all the other things you said. And really, last thing I can think of is not being afraid to reach out for help, whether that's like someone in your community or a friend or a relative, or just really anyone you feel like you can trust, and then getting into therapy if you need it. And there are different types of therapy. There's like mental health therapy, and then obviously there's also other types of more specific therapy depending on the work that you are looking to do. There's like generic counseling, and then the more specific therapy that's involved in trauma work, movement therapy. There's a lot of different types. So I think sometimes we think of therapy and we just think of like sitting on a couch with a therapist and just talking about different things. And that can be the case. That is typically my experience. But at the same time, there's a lot of different things. And depending on what you're looking for, you can find someone who will help you. There are so many practitioners. And yeah, I think Psychology Today is a good source. BetterHelp is great. They take most insurances. It's typically on the cheaper side, which is nice. Yeah, other than that, just reaching out for help. So it's hard. Again, we could do a whole separate live on it, but not being afraid to do it. I think therapy is like a lot like more popular now. I think when I first started going to therapy, it definitely was not.
Yeah.
Like, when was it like cool to go to therapy?
Right.
But also, that's a good thing ultimately. So talking to people about it, and I found that when I am more open about it, those around me are more open about it. And I've even helped people get into therapy, realizing that they need it and that it's okay. You don't necessarily have a specific problem for it. So there's that. Anyway.
A good time to start too in the summer. That's another thing you could start.
That's a good point. Yeah, exactly. I love that. Oh, also you mentioned books. I'm not a huge reader. Books on tape, great. If you have Audible, love that. Podcasts are great. I used to not be a big podcast listener. I was like to listening to music, but like make a hot girl summer playlist. Love that. But podcasts I really like are in related specifically to like women's health, sexual health, Girls Gotta Eat, Call Her Daddy. I feel like crime. This isn't really women's health, but like crime culture. They talk about women on there sometimes. What else do I listen to? Horrible Decisions. Our co-host from a couple weeks ago, Danielle, her podcast Sex Ed with DB. Maureen Pollock from Lovability has her own podcast now. So a lot of different ones. I can type them in the chat, but usually on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. So sometimes if I'm alone, I live by myself. So if I'm in a period where I'm like, there's like no one I can hang out with right now, but I also like don't really want to be by myself, I'll literally just turn on Girls Gotta Eat and listen to the host Raina and Ashley talk. Yeah. And it kind of helps. So just something to keep in mind. Okay. So that kind of gets us into our final topic, which is kind of the overall big picture. So how to be overall body positive especially in the summertime. Again, we talk about swimsuit season and warmer weather. So just typically that can cause some like changes in emotion, how you feel. And that's totally understandable. I think now too with the pandemic and body is just changing, or just maybe like, I know for me, like not seeing people for so long. And then all of a sudden now I'm like seeing more people. Obviously still be careful, but it can cause a lot of stress. So I want to talk about how to still feel confident in your own skin. We talked about, again, what to do on the outside, what to do for your brain. So now we're talking about the big picture. So I'm going to talk about one thing that I like to do, and then I'll kind of go into, I'll let you kind of take the lead. So big thing for me, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but was with social media. So I went on a social media like cleanse, so to speak, for about a year. I wasn't on Instagram. I was on Facebook, but like very lightly. And it was such a great decision. I am back on social media right now. It is hard to not be with this job. Or like in general in DC, I feel like it's just, you do kind of feel disconnected when you're not on social media, but hey, you can get the information from other people. So keep that in mind. That being said, if you are on social media, but you're like, okay, I'm not ready to delete everything, but a lot of this is bothering me. Go through it, unfollow. Oh my goodness. There's always something when I'm doing these lives, literally always something. Anyway, go through your account. This might take a little while, so you can divide it over a couple days, depending on people you follow, and literally just unfollow everyone who doesn't add value to your feed. I know that doesn't sound great, but at the same time, like, you don't really owe anyone anything for the most part. Again, I say that lightly. But like, yeah, and you'll feel so much better. And honestly, once it's off your feed, you're not even going to remember it most of the time. You'll probably just not see it and feel better. So things for me, that definitely works. If you don't want to fully delete social media, I think that's a great first step. And then eventually maybe you'll be like, you know what, I don't really need this anyway. So yes, unfollowing any account that doesn't make you feel good, and not feeling pressure to like post things, or feeling pressure to like, once you see other people's posts, I think we get trapped in that comparison a lot, but you're your
Yeah.
own person. And I think at the same time, like, we're our own hardest critics. So maybe you're looking at someone and being like, wow, like their life is so perfect. But first of all, you don't know the whole story. And second of all, there are probably a lot of people looking at you thinking the same thing. So I think that is something to keep in mind. Okay.
And also maybe following people who do make you feel good.
Mhm.
Like, and that could be like people who you don't even know. Like, I love Adrienne Marie Brown. She
Mhm.
wrote the book Pleasure Activism and many others. She's so brilliant. And she posts like on every Friday, she posts just a series of memes, and they're so funny. And she's also extremely body positive, and she's just such a beautiful soul. And so her content makes me happy. And so I followed her, and it's great. And I always tell people to follow her. People in that realm are really helpful, who are like, they know how to do that stuff. She's like studied this stuff. So she knows how to make you feel good.
Love that.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Okay, cool. Another thing, I'm like looking at my notes because sometimes it's hard to keep all of this stuff in my brain. There's so much I want to say, but condensed down.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is one that I thought of. I realized like about a year into living in my apartment that I still live in now, I don't have a mirror. Like, I have like a mirror for just in my bathroom, but I don't have a full length mirror. And honestly, I think that helped my body image a lot, because I wasn't just constantly looking at myself. And when you only have a face mirror, you'll realize like how little you see on your body. And for some people that might not be beneficial, but for me, it's really helpful because you're not constantly looking at your body. And I don't want to say flaws, because everybody is unique and beautiful in its own way. But it's easy to pinpoint parts of your body that you don't necessarily feel comfortable with. So not having a mirror, so maybe getting rid of yours or like covering it up. Or again, we can take it a step back if you're not ready to go there. I've seen a lot of people do this recently, is putting like sticky notes on their mirror, like with compliments of themselves, or just like reminders, things like that. And if you live with a roommate or a partner, great thing to do on their mirrors. I think that's really sweet.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that I really like. Anything to add to that?
No, I agree. I think like it's easy to get into that negative habit of like body checking, especially like at the end of the day, if you feel bloated and you're like, oh my gosh, you look at your tummy and say like, oh, like I'm so bloated, and it just makes you feel bad, even though it's just like, you just ate. That's just what happens with your body. And we kind of like have normalized that like that's not okay, when it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's your body fluctuates every day,
So
every
often.
minute of your day.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to just not have that pressure all the time. I agree.
And honestly, if it didn't change like that, probably something would be off anyway.
Right.
So usually it's just a sign that like things are working. And sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
See your doctor if you're concerned. But generally speaking, yeah, that's totally normal for things to happen when you eat more food. Obviously, your stomach is going to expand. So yeah, that's a really good point. And then another thing I like to do, I'm a personal trainer, so working in the fitness space, but also having come from a history of like disordered eating and some mental health problems, it's really interesting being in that space and seeing how people think about fitness and working out when you're not necessarily trained in that area. So something that I like to tell clients, or just really anyone, is that really thinking about your body as kind of just like, I don't want to say an entity that's separately from you, but just something that like really helps you. Like, our bodies are so amazing. It's actually kind of crazy. And
Yeah.
again, I don't want to put lightly that some people don't have chronic illnesses and
I was gonna bring up. I'm gonna bring
like,
up. I'm gonna bring
we'll
it up
talk about
after.
it. But let you speak for yourself. But so I don't want to say that all bodies are perfectly functioning. That is definitely not the case. But generally speaking, like, our bodies do so much for us every day. They help us move. They help us just like live and think. And because of that, like, of course you would treat that with respect. And you want to think like, okay, what would you tell your friend to do if they were telling you that they were having some challenges? So I think that's something to think about. And I think working out is fantastic. And I'm a personal trainer, so obviously I'm going to promote that. But at the same time, picking movement that makes you feel best. Like, you don't have to do workouts you see on TikTok. Like, you don't have to do any type of workout you don't want to do. And you don't have to work out every day. Again, if that's what makes you feel best, as long as you're fueling yourself and hydrating, like, I'm not going to tell you you can't do that. But at the same time, like, not doing that every day, or maybe you are exercising a lot and you think, okay, maybe I could take it a step back, but I still want to be active, like just doing things like walking, yoga, Pilates. Also, Pilates instructor, so I'm biased in that end. But we could do a whole separate live on fitness. But I think all of that is really helpful, and also just getting moving and not even thinking about it as exercise, just thinking about it as like a social thing, or even just like walking to get your coffee. Like, that fresh air aspect is really helpful, and just then kind of realizing just like that your body is able to do all of these things for you, which is really amazing. It kind of goes hand in hand. So, yeah. Do you want to touch upon the chronic illnesses?
Yeah. So I think this really like plays into the I always hesitate. I'm like, I don't know if I should bring it up, but I think it really goes into it. So I have Crohn's disease.
Nothing is off limits.
Nothing's off limits. I was like, is anything off limits? I was like, no, nothing's off limits. I have Crohn's disease, and I found out not that long ago, like a year ago. And within a year, my body has fluctuated a ton because Crohn's disease affects your digestive system. And it makes it hard to absorb nutrients. So it can lead to a lot of weight loss. It can lead to a lot of muscle loss. And when I'm in a flare, which happened a lot at the beginning and kind of until I figured out the right medication, your body's just changing in a way that's really scary. And I think in some ways it could have thrown me off in some ways it kind of did throw me off, and being like, oh, like, you always think of losing weight. Oh, it's a good thing. But
it's not always.
it meant that my body was really not doing well, and really not doing what it was supposed to be doing. And kind of since then, since I got on the right medication and everything, I've definitely like gained back a lot of weight, gained back a lot of muscle. And again, that's a scary thing because we're told that that's not good. We're taught in pretty much every situation that if you're gaining weight, like, that's a problem. Like, that shouldn't be the goal. But it was the goal. And I think like no one in my health, like my gastroenterologist, didn't really talk about this with me. Like, no one really talked about this with me, where like someone was like, this should be happening. You should be gaining weight back. You should be getting back to a place where your body feels good. And kind of, so again, at first it was very scary, but now, like, that I'm back at a place where my body feels really good. I'm at someone said this the other day, my happy weight. Not my like healthy weight, but my happy weight. A weight that makes you feel good, a weight that just feels natural and not like you have to think about it, kind of.
That's true. And most people have that.
I think most people have a pretty good set point based on like you're eating, you're having a little movement in your day, and you're not really thinking about it, and that's kind of where your body feels comfy. And I definitely feel like I've gotten kind of to that point, hopefully. Like, I'm doing well with my Crohn's and everything. So, and it made me, all of those experiences, I was rambling a little bit because I haven't really talked about it that much, but all of those experiences made me feel just a lot more grateful and in tune with my body. Because I'm like, when it's doing well, I'm like, yes, like thank you, like, you're doing so well, like, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
So it's not that I really hope people don't have this experience, but kind of having this experience from that perspective, I can say, like, when it's doing well and when I'm at a happy weight, I'm like so thankful for that. So yeah, that's kind of tangential, but still related to
definitely
feeling positive in your body and
absolutely
all that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because not everyone's body is always functioning 100%.
Exactly.
100% of the time.
Yeah.
When I had COVID, I mean, I can't even imagine, like, this was only temporary compared to people who have chronic illnesses. But even in those, like, couple weeks in my recovery, it was so frustrating knowing that I couldn't work out. I couldn't eat the way I normally do. But it's just like, sometimes you have to understand that, like, that's not where your body's meant to be at that time. So I like that. And then on a slightly more positive note, in terms of clothing, I'm definitely not a fashion person, so I don't really have a lot of great tips on this, but honestly, just wearing clothes that make you feel best. Yeah, I mean, I watched something the other day about how fashion is just like constantly evolving, and like you don't have to wear a suit to go to your corporate job. You can
Right.
wear something a little bit more like fitted or a little bit like looser on the top, things like that. And again, I don't know much about fashion. I wear leggings most of the time, but that makes me feel best. And I work in fitness, to be fair. And like that's fine, and that doesn't necessarily mean like having to wear a crop top to the party because everyone else is. I'm like I've been really into like bodysuits lately.
Little
For the summer,
bodysuit moment.
it can be a little hot. But yeah, love that. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't know
What?
any clothes you like wearing.
Well,
Or the thing you said yesterday.
yes, I have like a thing
It's a
that
nice
I
little-
keep hearing this on TikTok and Instagram and stuff. So a positive place, and it was with maybe Adrienne Marie Brown or someone in that realm said like, you don't have to fit the clothes fit you. Like it's not on you to change for the clothes.
Not
Like
at
the
all.
clothes aren't people, the clothes aren't, and you shouldn't be changing for people either. But the clothes don't know anything. The clothes are that doesn't matter. The clothes should fit you. Like they serve you. You shouldn't be serving them. So, if that means like size, it doesn't matter. It's different everywhere and it makes no difference. I always forget like numbers don't stick in my head, so I'm like, I don't know what size I am. But I'll just you go to the store, you find something nice. I love Thread Up. Thread Up's been awesome. And the nice thing about Thread Up, you can get something that's a little bigger if you need to shrink it a little, if you need to tailor it a little. Again, the clothes should be fitting your body. Like you shouldn't be changing for the clothes. It's just not worth it.
I've been loving Aerie lately. The like kind of side piece of American Eagle. I think it's mostly women's clothing, but they have a lot of like undergarments, a lot of just like clothes, but then also some like nicer wear, and it's just like really comfortable, really stretchy for the summer, but also like really cute in my opinion. So yeah, I would also recommend that. And then really last thing I can think of for this is somewhat unrelated, but also kind of bringing it home. We are a birth control company. Also, I meant to say this at the beginning of the live, and hopefully it was a given. We are not medical professionals.
Yeah.
So
We're just
check
people.
out our CEO and co-founder, Dr. Yen, next week for a more probably medically accurate and informative live. Or check out our website, pandiahealth.com, for information that is like peer and doctor reviewed. And these are just things that have helped us / people we've talked to. We somewhat work in the health space, and that is my future career, but at the same time, please take all of this with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And yeah, last thing I wanted to mention for body positivity, a lot of women or just people in general don't know that if you are on birth control, it is totally safe to skip your period. And I know a lot of people I have spoken to feel definitely less comfortable in their bodies while they're on their period, physically, emotionally, when you're going through PMS, like throughout your cycle, you genuinely might feel different. So if you don't have a period, you don't have to experience those things. And this is different than missing a period. If you're missing a period, not intentionally, talk to your doctor. Could mean a couple of things in terms of health. So that's not what we're referring to, but specifically like intentionally taking your birth control and then skipping the inactive pills and intentionally skipping your period. In that case, you can avoid those ups and downs altogether. So great way to bring it home, relate it back to Pandia Health. And then kind of switching gears, talking a little bit more about that. We are the only women-led, doctor-led birth control delivery service in the United States. And with the recent overturn of Roe v. Wade, it's been really great to see support and also see not even just with Pandia, but in general, more individuals just want to talk about birth control, learn about birth control, because while it's not the answer to everything, it could be really beneficial in a lot of different cases, especially when bodily autonomy is being limited for a lot of individuals. Birth control is one way you can kind of take back some control over that. And again, all that to say that could change. But for now, something to think about. So that is kind of all we have. We're pretty much at time. But I wanted to just plug a few last things. So we kind of talked about Pandia. Obviously, check us out. We're all over social media: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn. We post some stuff on there too. We have more lives coming up. Yes, with Dr. Yen and TBD on when the next Real Talk will be, but hopefully soon. And thank you so much for joining. Is there anything you wanted to plug? Anything gun violence prevention related? Anything? We didn't talk too much about that just because, again, we wanted to keep it kind of health related.
Yeah.
But that is a public health concern.
So true. Yeah, just
So
always vote.
yes.
All elections matter, especially the local ones. And if you are in DC elections matter. I was just looking at some of the things with the primary and some news articles, and I was like, this is crazy. And and I think you kind of forget, like, oh, DC, you don't really vote, but council members and the mayor, like, things are happening.
Yes.
So, and they matter. So all elections matter wherever you are. Make sure if you're a student, get your absentee ballot.
Yes, very important.
That's the biggest way that we can make some change, get some new people in office.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't really need anything to vote, right? You can just fill out your absentee ballot application if you're voting absentee or registering to vote in the state that you just moved to. If you're 18, just registering to vote, period. Yeah, so anyone can do it.
Anyone can vote. And then just the last note on body positivity, like keep up the good work. Like even the bad, I don't know. I always see, like, again, on Instagram, social media, like people are saying, like, even on your bad days, like there's always good days ahead. So it's okay if you're, having a day that's a little more rough. And we all have our ups and downs with feeling good in our bodies, feeling good in our mental health. So it'll fluctuate, and that's all normal, just like your body every day. So just always sending it love. You're beautiful. You're amazing.
Yeah. I got nothing else to add to that. That was great. Yeah, good and bad days. It's going to happen, and it's scary to think about that, but you also don't have to dwell on the bad days, and also understand that everyone is probably experiencing it too, and people have gotten through it, and you will get through it. So there's that, but also enjoy the happy times because that's all we can do. So I said I got nothing else to add, and then I added to it.
No, it's great.
But anyway, that's what you get when you're with family. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Whether you're watching this right now or at a later date, feel free to share it with friends or just anyone who needs to hear this information. So apologies for all the rambling. Again, that's what you get when you're with family. And we are wishing you all good things from Washington, D.C. to wherever you are at. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Again, feel free to ask questions if anything comes up, and we'll see you next time. Bye.